WIMG.com. And if you're watching, it is via television at WZBN Channel 25. And I've been speaking with a local comedian, Dan Regan, R-E-G-A-N, who is going to be performing next Saturday, which is the 28th of April at Cedar Gardens in Hamilton. What is the ticket information for that?
That's a good question. I don't know the ticket information as well. I believe you could probably call Cedar Gardens Pub, and maybe buy tickets over the phone. I don't think they have a website though, so probably I know there'd be some at the door when you get there. I don't even know how big the pub is. I know Cedar Gardens is a hall. That's a large area. I believe the pub is just like a little smaller venue, like a little, almost like I think it's a coffee house like type atmosphere. Okay. I could be wrong.
Great. So we've been chatting about his relationship to comedy, how he got started, etc. So Dan, some of the material. I know we covered some things about how the industry has what is deemed clean comedy and blue comedy or raunchy or edgy. You know, this being a gospel station, I mean, there's going to be some concerns that your listening audience is going to have about the material.
Right.
Speaking of material, where do you find your influence?
Like, who are my heroes? Or
no, not necessarily your heroes, but what influences you
to write a joke? People. And it could be anybody. Celebrities, a stranger on the street. I look at people, and I observe them, whatever they're doing, and what I try to do is, okay, how can I make that funny? What are they doing? Even if they're not doing anything funny, how can I make that funny? The other day, I forget where I was. I was in some office, and it said, "Please do not throw litter on the ground," and it was signed the staff. And I'm thinking, it took the entire staff to write that. I mean, that one person couldn't have just typed that up and throw it on the wall. So it's stuff like that, like stupid things that just pop in my head that it might come into a joke.
And I've seen on your Facebook postings as well as your website, you always have some baseball memorabilia or sports generated. Are you're obviously a big sports fan?
Huge sports fan, which is also a lot of my material as well. That influences me big time. I could do a Jose Reyes joke for you if you like. I don't know if anybody out there is familiar with Jose Reyes. He's now on the Marlins, and I just read today that the Mets are going to honor him the next time he comes to New York. So I said the best way to honor him is to have every fan limp to their seat. And to have the entire Mets roster go on the 15-minute DL, if they really want to honor Jose Reyes.
So I take it you're not a New York Mets fan.
No.
Who are you a fan of?
I'm a Yankees fan. Definitely a Yankees fan. Yeah. High payroll. But people ask me, do you ever get tired of rooting for the Yankees, or do you ever get tired of them winning every year? I said, I don't know. Do you ever get tired of maybe eating a steak once a year in October? I mean, like, why would I get tired of having success or having enjoyment or satisfaction? So I never get tired of them winning.
And as we get ready to come up on a break again, I want to say that you're listening to WIMG 1300 AM, and you're watching over WZBN Channel 25, and I'm speaking with Dan Regan, a local comedian from the Trenton/Hamilton area, who's performed throughout the region in the Laugh House, the Stress Factory, Scottish Rite Theater, several firehouses, etc. He's got a pretty wide, diverse group of material. So, birthday parties.
I haven't done a birthday party yet, but actually over the weekend I had to get my air conditioning fixed, and the guy that came over does parties, private parties, and he actually said to me he wants me to do a private party for him in June, possibly. So that'll be my first private party, and if people want to hire me for that, let me know what kind of material you want. I'll see if I could, my schedule's open, I'll do it. That's not a problem.
Great. So before we go to the break, I know we had touched briefly on the sports industry and how much of a sports fan you are. Considering what the current state of like sports are right now, the strikes, the payrolls, and all those different things, has that led you to write any specific jokes?
Let me say, for the strikes, for the payroll, not really. I know the hot topic is Tim Tebow lately. I've done a lot of Tim Tebow jokes. People that follow me have probably seen like a lot of Tim Tebow jokes. But when the Jets finally got him on their team, I said, now they have two quarterbacks that could throw for 200 yards for the entire game.
All right, so again, I apologize. He's got me giggling over here. Again, you've been listening to Violence Serves No Purpose. We're just about up on a break. And when we return from the break, we'll talk more with comedian Dan Regan about comedy and how folks can actually utilize the comedy in their lives and how we can actually use that to defer some of the attention from the violence that's taking place in the area. My name is Jacque Howard. This is Violence Serves No Purpose. This is WIMG 1300. We'll see you after the break.
Walk blindly to the light and reach out for his hand. Don't ask any questions and don't try to understand. Open up your mind and then open up your heart.
Breaking news alert for women using the birth control drugs Yasmin, Yaz, and Ocella. Recent medical studies show an increased risk of blood clots and possible gallbladder problems. If you or a loved one has experienced any of the following: blood clot-related injuries, heart attack, stroke, deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, or gallbladder removal or surgery, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call now for a free case evaluation, 800-507-7293. If you or a loved one use the birth control drugs Yaz, Yasmin, or Ocella, time is limited to file a claim. Act now. You may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293. Protect your legal rights today. Call 800-507-7293. The attorney responsible for this advertisement is Carrie L. Steigerwalt, admitted in California, office address 4350 Executive Drive, Suite 150, San Diego, California 92121. Cases may be referred to or independently handled by separate local counsel for principal responsibility.
Walk blindly to the light and reach out for his hand. Don't ask any questions.
And welcome back to Violence Serves No Purpose. I'm your host, Jacque Howard. You are listening to WIMG 1300 AM and over the internet, WIMG1300.com, and via television, WZBN Channel 25. We've been speaking with local comedian Dan Regan. And Dan, the mic's yours. How about a couple of jokes?
Okay. Well, I notice as I'm getting older, I notice some different things are happening. I know people can't see me, but I'm bald. I shave my head. It's not by choice. Nature actually dictated that to me, and they said that. And I tried to grow my hair back once. Wasn't a good look for me. It looked like an aerial shot of a forest fire. And I also noticed that as I'm getting older, things are happening. Like, you shouldn't have to pull a muscle in your back just by getting up, which has happened, unfortunately, sadly to me. And I also make these involuntary sounds, like when I'm yawning. Sometimes I'll go, oh, and I don't know where that comes from. Like, I guess it's all part of getting older. But and the big thing is Alzheimer's. And people fear Alzheimer's. I really don't, because if I ever get it, I'm going to meet new people every day. So that's not really a bad thing, I don't think. So, you know.
All right, and Dan, you want to share some of your contact information where some people can find out a little bit more about you, your comedy, and your experiences?
Sure. My website, danregans.com with an S. You can also find me on Facebook, Dan Regan, and I am also on Twitter at Dan Regans with an S as well. Okay,
and that's spelled R-E-G-A-N.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So it's Dan Regan, not like our former president.
No.
It's R-E-G-A-N.
Yes.
And Dan, you've recently been on WZBN News as well. Can you talk a little bit about how that came up?
Yeah, Mark from WZBN found me on Twitter, and he contacted me and said he'd like to have me on as a guest on the Mercer County Close-Up special. And I went there the next day and taped it. It was a great experience too. It was nice. I went to the studio and we did a little 7-minute interview, and it went well. I had a good time doing it.
And in addition to that, you've also you had an interview also in the Hamilton Post.
Yes, also had a couple months ago. Reporter Kate Kelly from from Mercer Space, the Hamilton Post, She contacted me and she said that she'd like to do an interview with me because I'm from the Hamilton area, and she wrote a great article. She really made me sound better than what I am. I mean, I got to give her credit on that. And yeah, that was in the Post, and that was well received as well.
Now, was that a joke?
What's that?
The last comment that you made about it being so good?
No. It really was a great article. She did a great job. Like, I'm serious. She made me sound better. Like, I read, I'm like, wow, who is this guy? This guy sounds great. I'd like to see him one day. So.
All right. And so we've got a Twitter, Facebook, and a website. And your comedy can go in a couple of different directions.
Right.
It can be mainly based upon current issues, celebrities, I would assume.
Celebrities, athletes, anything basically.
The faith-based community, churches and religion. And
I just want to
Christianity.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say this is something on a side note. It's funny this is a gospel station because when I walked in here, the temperature was on hell, by the way, okay? It was hot. It was hot in here. Okay?
He's being very honest. The studio is nice and cool.
The studio was cool, but when I first walked in, I said, wow, I didn't think I was going to have a sauna treatment today. It was bad in here.
Okay, so some of the material from the Christian perspective or the religious perspective. What is something that you could do maybe for a men's group to do an event or have a small men's group discussion, or even just for a night out comedy special or something at a church?
That'd be great. I honestly, I think comedy does help. Comedy, people can't be mad when they're laughing. It's the bottom line. You can't be mad when you're laughing. So comedy can deter violence. You have a comedy night because it prompts creativity as well. You have kids coming in, and let's say they have creative minds. You know, they just don't want to write. Well, if they write a joke, that might be cooler than maybe writing a story. So I think that would also be a good deterrent of violence. Just having maybe a workshop also, like a comedy workshop. You know, do you ever have any aspirations of getting up on stage and telling jokes? Do you like telling jokes, making people laugh? And I think that'll help because it gives them a focus. And like I said, if they're interested in writing, comedy's writing. I mean, you have to create. Or if you're Dane Cook, you just copy off of Louis C.K. But you know.
All right, so regarding the comedy in like a spiritual setting, you're saying that you could see comedy deferring people's aggression,
right,
or people's anger or animosity towards others by maybe tying in writing or just what laughter does.
Comedy's therapeutic. It definitely is. Like a lot of my material, some of it comes from, not to bring it down, but some of my own pain in life turns into a joke. And I think that helps people. It helps you cope with different situations in your life, different problems. You get something that's hurtful to you, and you try to make okay, how can I make that funny, make it a positive in my life? And by turning it into a joke, I think that's probably the best way to do it. So I think a lot of people that maybe they're from a single family home or from a broken home, you know, maybe they could turn that, and that's where a lot of the comics you see today, if you listen to them on interviews, a lot of their main jokes come from that. It's from their own pain growing up.
So since you brought it up and touched on it, is that where you have a lot of your focus with your material, or has comedy helped pull you out of those tough situations?
I think it's done both. I think depending on the situation, it's done both. There's times where maybe I'm in a bad or down mood, and I said, okay, well, now it's time to focus and write. So that'll pull me out of that area that you mentioned. Or at the same time, something happens to me, and it's a negative. I'll say, you know what? I'm not going to dwell on this the rest of my life. I'm going to turn it into something funny. So when I look back on it, I'm going to laugh instead of maybe be down about it. So it works both ways, different situations.
And you're listening to Violence Serves No Purpose, and I'm your host, Jacque Howard, and this is WIMG 1300 AM and also over the television at WZBN Channel 25. And I've been speaking with comedian Dan Regan, who's performed in several locations throughout the greater Trenton area. And he's also a Hamiltonian. So Dan, in the next few minutes that we have before the interview is over, tell me in your own words what you expect comedy to do locally.
I'd love to see it grow, because in this area there's nothing for comedy. There's nothing in this area for comedy. No venues, no open mics. And that's another thing too. People in this area, I think, are so starved for comedy. And if I wish some local business entrepreneur, if they, let's say they have something that they want to build or something they want to open, build a comedy club. Build a, you could put comedy shows on every night. It's profitable. It'll draw business. I think people are starving for that, because all the time, people that live in my area, they always tell me, they said, there's nothing around here for comedy, and I agree. Mm-hmm. That's why I have to go to Philly. I have to go to New York to perform, because there's nothing here locally. I'm doing the Cedar Gardens one next week, which it's fortunate, because I like doing local shows, but they're just too far and few between. Mm-hmm. So.
And you think that as far as the area, besides the area being ripe for comedy, you think that this area would support comedy as only almost a business, but also as a remedy for the lack of entertainment?
Definitely, because we have we had a nightclub in the Trenton area, Kathmandu, that people supported well. I think they would support a comedy club as well. You have a date night, Friday night, Saturday night, you have a date. Let's go to a comedy club. Instead of traveling, 40 miles to New York or Philly, there's one right here in the area. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a great alternative. It would be a great thing to do for people. Mm. Comedy show is a great date night, because you go there to comic, bust on you, bust on your girlfriend, and then you go home and you talk about it. It's a great date night. Perfect date night.
All right. And I know there's a venue at the Hyatt Regency. What's your experience with that? Is there still a comedy show there?
Yeah,
a comedy venue? It's
Catch a Rising Star. I tried to get into Catch a Rising Star a couple times, and I sent them my DVD and haven't heard back. So I guess that's my answer. But it's tough to get in there. You really have to have an agent representation, which I don't. I just represent myself. I don't have a promoter. I don't have an agent. I just try to get my own shows. Mm-hmm. So.
And what are your thoughts to anyone who may be wanting to get into comedy, or as a little part-time gig, or maybe as a career?
Practice. Get out there, get as many open mics as you can. Practice in front of your mirror as much as you can, but also get out on stage, because the mirror is a lot different than live people looking at you. And don't ever say this joke isn't funny, this joke won't work. Try it out, because some of the jokes that I've done, I think this joke's not going to work, and it kills, and vice versa. I do a joke that I'm so proud of, I hear crickets. So it all depends. You never know. I mean, you can't judge other people.
Okay. And this has been Violence Serves No Purpose, and I've been your host, Jacque Howard, and we've been speaking with Dan Regan, a local comedian. He can be found on Twitter at Dan Regans, Regans, Facebook, Dan Regan, and his website is Dan Regans, again, Regans.com. Dan is going to be performing next Saturday, which is April 28th at Cedar Gardens, which is in Hamilton Township. His past experiences include the Laugh House in New Brunswick, the Stress Factory in Philadelphia, the Scottish Rite Theater in Collingswood, New Jersey, venues in New York City, local firehouses, etc. He is open for bookings, and you can reach out to him and contact him via one of those previously mentioned areas. So Dan, just as we're about to close up, and you've been talking about how violence could be deferred and aggression can be deferred because of laughter, right, and of comedy. So you're saying that comedy is just another venue for entertainment, similar to the movies?
Right. Yeah, I've actually been cornered before by a couple guys, and I told them some jokes, and now they come to my shows. So, one of them was actually on the payroll, so he's my bodyguard. No, but seriously, it can. It really can. I always was a class clown growing up in school, and I used that to just avoid, if I was in a nervous situation, I would tell a joke just to try to get out of, making people laugh is the best icebreaker, and it relaxes people. It really does. I mean, like I said, how could you be mad when you're laughing? You can't.
So in closing, you want to hit us with one more joke?
Okay, I'll tell you. I'll give you one more joke. I noticed that people take a lot of smoke breaks. Well, I'm not a smoker, so I think what I'm going to do at my job is I'm going to save up all the smoke breaks I would have taken, and I'm going to retire 3 years earlier.
You've been listening to Violence Serves No Purpose, and I'm your host, Jacque Howard, and this has been WZBN Channel 25 for television, WIMG 1300 on the AM dial, and WIMG1300.com. And again, we've been speaking with local comedian Dan Regan. He can be found on Facebook, Twitter, and also on the website. And I'm sure if we just Google you, that your information will come up.
I'll come up as well. You'll
Absolutely.
see my lovely face on Google as well.
Right. And Dan's got a pretty diverse group of or reference material, so he can do some really, really clean stuff, child-friendly stuff, family-friendly stuff, and so forth. Well, Dan, thank you very much for coming on to the program.
Thank you very much
I
for having
wish
me.
you the best of luck going forward, and maybe someone who's in the listening audience will have a desire to want to do a comedy show and to do something in the greater Trenton area, and then we'll be able to start promoting another form of entertainment.
Sounds great.
So again, you've been listening to Violence Serves No Purpose. This is WIMG 1300 AM, and on television, WZBN Channel 25. And I've been your host, Jacque Howard. Good night.